It's my favourite kind of episode. I know it's your favourite too. Today we are back with a transfer special here at Union Berlin. Today, hopefully we're going to get some wheeling and dealing done, and well, initial dilemma alert. It's the 11th of June, and I've had a bid for Alex Scott of £57 million. Now, make no mistake, Alex Scott is an incredible player for us. He is way better than pretty much any other player in our squad, but he does have this release clause of £83 million, which, I mean, if I got 83 million, I'd be kind of happy. As for this bid here, though, it's only worth £57 million, and it is locked in from Aston Villa. Now, you might be sat there thinking, well, Aston Villa, they can't be a Champions League club. They absolutely can be. In this universe, in the first season, you're not going to believe this, in the first season, they finished second. They finished 10 points behind Liverpool. In the second season, they have finished second. They finished 12 points behind Man City. I don't know what Unai Emery is cooking up, but yeah, Villa in this universe are very good. They've not triggered Alex Scott's release clause here. Does make me a little bit worried because there's quite a lot of the summer left. Will we still have this man at the start of the season? How are we going to improve the rest of the squad today? We're going to find out together. This episode, the transfer special, part 1 for this summer. It begins right now. Yes, folks, I hope you guys are doing absolutely amazing. To start things today, I'm rejecting this offer. I am going to hope that Alex Scott doesn't get unhappy about that bid being rejected. He has still got 4 years left on his current deal, so there's not an immediate pressure to sell him. In an ideal world, we still have him. In the second most ideal world, we get the full £83 million. I don't really envisage me selling him for anything less. Now, you may have spotted in the top right, it is the 11th of June, so I am coming back a little bit later today. Originally, I was planning on going further into the future before starting some dealings to wait for the season to tick over, but also for some sales to go through, because we are moving on some players. In terms of sales that have already happened, Daniel is heading to FC Cologne. We've not got a lot of money for him, but he was going to be our 4th choice goalkeeper, so good to just get him off the books, really. Elsewhere in the team, Mark Oliver Kemp is going to be leaving us to join Gladbach. This guy at 30 years old has been a very fringe player this year, did not start a single match. We've received £2.5 million. There is a bit of a sell-on as well. To be honest, it's not a crazy amount of money, but yeah, good to get anything for him. We already knew this deal was happening, but Julian Draxler will be leaving to join Freiburg. Of course, Freiburg pipped us for Champions League football. Now they've stolen Draxler. I'm livid. And the last of the ongoing sales is this one here. It is Faris Yusufu, one of the goalkeepers we picked up very early on in this save game from Schalke for £2.4 million. He's not developed that much in the last 2 years, and whilst I do think there probably is a very, very good goalkeeper here, I got a very, very good bid for him. £8 million bid by Benfica. I think that also includes 50% profit clause. If he was to develop, if he was to get sold for more money, we get a nice little bit of kickback. But yeah, £8 million for a goalkeeper who I don't think is close to first team ready. It's some good money. So if the Yusufu deal goes through, we will have a transfer budget of around £30 million for this year. The natural question to ask is, Jack, what do you actually want to improve? And that, to be honest, is a rather reasonable question. Here is my blocked out starting 11 for the new season. If the season started tomorrow, this is a team I think I'd be happy starting with. I talked about it last episode, but Bullet, I think next year is going to be our starting right back ahead of Da Costa. At 19 years old, he needs regular first team football. Elsewhere in the team, Martel at centre back feels like a really, really good, logical player to stick around in that area. You might remember last episode, I was looking to sign Felix Udokai. Bad news, I didn't sign Felix Udokai. He is elected to join Leicester instead, which we kind of knew was going to happen. That does mean, at least for now, Arian B is the left centre-back option. That's an area of the pitch I could look to improve upon. If I was going to do that, I think it'd be a move that I make after sorting out the left-back area. Right now, our left-back choice is, well, Roussillon, who, I mean, his legs have gone, or in fact, sticking Arian B at left-back, which is a role he can do to an okay level. He isn't the best player going forward, and one thing I am certainly thinking about experimenting with for the coming year is changing up Zach Kyan's role. He didn't really create a great deal from open play as an inside forward, and it wasn't like he was scoring a load. There is a real temptation to maybe play him as an inverted winger this year, but for that to work, I'd like to get a really good attacking fullback who can support him on that side of the pitch. That is the one area of the team that I look at and go, I have to find someone to play there. Now, in terms of the central midfield positions, I'm actually pretty happy with things. I think Tom Kraus is a player who is only going to get better. Had a bit of a slow start in his first season at the club, but he is a good centre defensive mid option. I certainly think between him and Forsby, when it comes to defensive mids, we've got kind of two adequate players for this position, at least with the current state of the squad. In terms of the two more attacking centre mid areas, of course, Felix Nemetschia, player of the season, I think by all accounts. He was absolutely immense for us, and alongside him, I do want to give Widrea a go as many minutes as possible. 19 years old, played a lot of first-team football for us this year, started 25 of 34 league games. To start the year, I wasn't even sure if he was going to be a nailed-on starter, but he has just continued to develop. The one dilemma I have, I think, with Widrea Go and Felix Nemetschia is they are two very, very good centre mids in an attacking sense, but both of them do have obvious gaps in their game when it comes to their defensive ability. It does mean that if I want to play them alongside one another, I do feel like there has to be a defensive midfielder behind. One thing I did consider doing this year was playing Zach Kyan as a centre attacking mid, but if I was going to do that, I feel like we'd have to shuffle the whole team around to make it work, which isn't really something I'm prepared to do just yet. Some people might think with the current team squad, why not just play a super narrow system? I'm still burnt from Season 1. You might have forgotten it by now. It was a few weeks ago. Start of Season 1, the whole plan was to play a narrow kind of 4-1-2-1-2 here at Union Berlin. And it just didn't work. So at least for now, I want to stick it out with this system that has got us 5th place this year and has achieved really good things. But because of the system we're playing, because of the two centre mids, and Widrea and Nemetschia, I just feel like Zach Kyan doesn't work through the middle without changing things up rather radically. Speaking of the final third, of course, we have landed on a really good striking option this year in Luka Nemetschia. He has been absolutely immense. One thing I did talk about last episode was the fact that we were kind of just lacking a natural striking backup option. I have found that backup option in Demirovic. We were looking at him last episode. He is from Augsburg, had a release clause of £2.9 million, a player who did get 12 goals last season, struggled this year with an Augsburg team that got relegated. He does have part German nationality, and whilst we are here, there is one other signing I've made I'm excited about, but he won't join us until next year, and it's this guy, Kadir Ozturk. He is a Turkish 17-year-old, but, and crucially, he has got part German nationality, so he's a German domestic player as far as we're concerned. You'll see here, he is a natural winger. He will never play on the wing for us. If he plays for as a winger, things have gone wrong. But actually, as a more defensive, kind of deeper lying midfielder in a slightly less mobile role, he is pretty darn perfect. 19 first touch, 19 determination, great passing, great technique. He's only 17 years old. We picked him up for a release clause of £425,000. Shout out to Bursaspor for the great release clause. They've done us a favour, but he doesn't join us till next year. Anyway, I feel like that does set the stage for what to expect from this pre-season. We need to get a left wing back in. Ideally, I'd like to move on a couple more players before we go too crazy signing players. I think a critical thing is going to be to get to the season tick-over date to see what kind of players might we be able to attract. How does our reputation perhaps change? Because I'd like to think we will have a tiny bit more pulling power than last year. I don't know if I love or hate this, but apparently Heidel, rumoured to be in a Benfica shirt. Will he be heading over to Portugal? Not on my watch, he won't be. Of course, he was our Austrian, Swiss and Liechtenstein wildcard player last year. Of course, just as a reminder, we're limited to German players with one wildcard from anywhere in the world, one more from one of the neighbouring German-speaking nations. And well, Heidel was our Austrian player. He started slowly, had that great cup final. He's 24 years old. He's still developing. I don't really plan on selling him. And one thing I have seen people asking about is, Jack, if you sell a wildcard player, you know, if an Alex Scott or a Zach Kyan goes, do you get an extra wildcard signing? No, I don't. So the wildcard players are players that I really want to protect at all costs. And unless a monstrous bid comes in where I feel like I can replace them with a German player, don't expect to see me selling them. I say that knowing that last episode, there were a lot of people calling for Zach Kyan's head, saying massively overvalued, didn't play well this year, and whilst I don't feel like he had the craziest season ever, he got 11 assists, a few of those were from set pieces, but that said, he also got 6 goals. He actually got a better average rating for the season than Alex Scott, and at 22 years old, he was learning that new position, playing out on the left-hand side. I'm not ready or willing to give up on him just yet. He's got a 4-year deal. We can give him a couple more seasons before I feel like I have to honestly consider selling him. Seeing Linus Gekter's face pop up here has just reminded me of something. He, of course, was a player we picked up a few years ago. Good young player, bags of potential, but needs regular minutes. He got promoted with Darmstadt to the Bundesliga, featuring in 31 games, 31 starts as well. So getting loads of first-team football. I've offered him out on loan to them for another year. They've accepted that, so hopefully he's going to get some regular football in the Bundesliga. And another youngster who I have opted to loan out for another year is Brian Gruder. This guy, going on loan to Hansel Rostock for a second season, had a little bit of an injury while he was at the club, but has been a regular player when fit. He is ready, I think, for Bundesliga 2 football on the regular, so keep a close eye on him. I feel like it's going to be a bit of a do-or-die moment for him. Was a temptation to cash in on him given his current value and the fact that we sold him for £4.5 million. I'm going to hope that with one more season out on loan, he can develop. At the very least, he puts in good enough performances that we can look to potentially sell him on. Okay, I have just had a bid from Celta Vigo for Ngankam. Of course, Ngankam picked up for £2.7 million, had that horrific injury. I gave him so many chances this year, and he just didn't really do anything. So with that in mind, I think it is time to cash in on him. As for £7.6 million, Celta Vigo have offered 7.2 in kind of installments. I'm going to be a bit cheeky here and ask for £7 million from them, as well as 40% of any profit. They have come back with a counter offer, including 50% of any profit. How about 6.75? They've locked in 4.2 up front and then 3.5 million over 2 years. I think I'm just going to take this bid. I don't think we're going to get a much better bid for Ngankam. He's a great player, but with his injury proneness, with the injury he had for us, I just don't feel like he's quite at the level that we're at now. And of course, Demirovic, we've already agreed to sign, who's basically the Ngankam replacement. Demirovic signed for £2.9 million, so with Ngankam leaving for over 7 million, albeit in clauses, it feels like pretty good business. Okay, I've actually had some bids for Hadel. No intention of selling him. He's happy to stay at the club. I mean, we've signed him on a 4-year deal, or there's 4 further years on his deal. No release clause. The best bid we got, well, we got £21 million locked in from Monaco. I just don't really need the money. I don't think I could replace him for that. The other bid I've got is from Benfica here. Apparently, he has no interest in Benfica whatsoever. I'm just going to put in an absurd offer that I don't expect them to accept. Yeah, if they bid 30 million, maybe I would have considered it. Funnily enough, they're not willing to pay £30 million, and I don't really blame them. Now, this is a little bit unfortunate. The new Champions League format has kicked in, but because we're not in the top 2 for coefficients, Germany doesn't get an extra spot. Had Germany finished ahead of Spain, and France for that matter, and Italy for that matter, we would have actually ended up in the Champions League with the new format. Because, yeah, the new format means that the 2 top-rated nations actually get an extra spot above the 4 that they ordinarily get. We're not the beneficiaries of that. That said, the new format is going to be kicking in, and of course, we are going to be playing in the Europa League with the ridiculous group of 36 teams. And if you've not yet played Football Manager with this mental format, I'll tell you what, you're not really missing out. I'm not a fan of it. Yusufu is going to be heading to Benfica, £8 million, 50% of any profit. I'm not sure if he's going to be worth that much money down the line, but a player we picked up for £2.4 million didn't play a single game for us. It's nice to turn a little bit of a profit. It's something I've talked about before, given the club that we're at, given our infrastructure, the stadium, the broken kit on the profile screen, which I'll need to fix in a second. We do need to sell players in order to turn a profit. Why is the kit broken like that? Give me a moment. Okay, crisis averted, people. I fixed the kit. By the way, shout out Whitey as always for the new kits. He does all the kits with all the save games. He's a legend, but he did misname the 3D file as the 2D file and vice versa. We now have the regular 2D kit. You can let me know what you think of this year's kits as well down in the comments. But just looping back to that previous point, I'm going to have to sell on players. I've accepted that. There are going to be youngsters that don't make the first team, but if we can turn them into profit, that's going to be important because we don't really have other sources of income. You can see here the Bundesliga signing of the season. Tillman, Nemecha, Wiedreago, all up there. But the winner was Jesper Lindstrom. This guy joined Leipzig from Eintracht Frankfurt. 10 goals, 11 assists, 7.27 rating. Yeah, he did pretty well, to be fair. I am shocked, I am appalled, I am angry. Hertha Berlin 2 are renting our stadium for next year. Hertha Berlin 2 are sharing our ground. Not having that. Sadly for our B team, they weren't promoted into the playable leagues this year, so we'll have to organise lots of friendlies again. But maybe next year they'll be playing competitive football. Expectations for the season. The board want Europa Conference League football qualification through the league. That means a top 7 finish. As to the Europa League, do I think I can make it to the first knockout round? I think I can, but is it really worth £12,000 a week? I'm not sure it is. Also, we will have the Super Cup to look forward to against Leipzig, which I say look forward to. Not even sure if we'll cover it in a video because we didn't do last year's against Bayern Munich, and frankly, Does anyone even actually care about the Super Cup? Answers on a postcard. If you want to plead your case for this game to feature in the first episode of the season, you can try your best. Probably not going to buy into it. We have just had our fixtures announced to start the season. FC Cologne, who we played in the final of the Cup, we have away from home, followed up with Hertha Berlin, and then Bayern Munich, 4th game of the season. Certainly not ideal, but I guess it's better than playing Bayern first game of the year. There is also just a little green arrow for the reputation going up a little bit, which I'm now going to hope means that when I go to the transfer screen, there's loads of new players available. Now, like I mentioned earlier, absolute focus of this transfer window has to be to get in a left back. I have been looking at a couple of players. Felix Agu looks good. Don't feel like he's a massive improvement on what we've already got. Luka Netz as well could be a good little player. I was going to say minor concerns about the asking price. They're pretty major ones, to be honest. I just don't think he's an 8 to 13 million pound player. One player who has caught my eye here is Jordan Torunariga. I hope I've said that correctly. This guy could be maybe not the left back option of our dreams, but he could be a good left centre back option. I already mentioned the fact that Arian B, I'm kind of open to replacing. Of course, we did look at Felix Udekai. I'm looking at Jordan Torunariga here thinking 5.2 to 7.8 million pounds. He's not on unreasonable wages. He's a Nigerian international with some caps at youth level for Germany. He could be a pretty good signing for us, to the point where I'm almost tempted to put in a bid now to sign him at centre-back, and then I'll wait for the scout report and delay the transfer as long as need to, just to make sure there's nothing that our scouts haven't spotted that's going to be wrong with him. I suppose one minor concern when you look at his injury history could be his injury proneness, but I don't know. Let's get the wheels moving on this deal right away. We'll get the scout report in. We can obviously make a final decision then, but I feel like for the kind of money that's being guesstimated, he'd be a good signing. They have just got very angry that I offered 5.25 million. He's actually got a release clause of 7.75 million pounds, so I guess we'll just pay that. We have still got Ngankam leaving the club for 4.2 million pounds up front, 7 million over a longer period of time. That is going to take the transfer budget to, what, in the region of 35 million pounds? So I feel like spending, quarter of that on a left centre-back option when you look at the current squad, that would be a pretty sensible decision to make. I think what it would mean for Arian B is that we move him onto the bench and he becomes the second choice left-back option who can also play at centre-back. I'm now just looking at our defence, realising we've got players like Bisek, who I think is a good backup centre-back option. Flick is a good centre-back option as well. Arian B is another solid centre-back option. If I was to sign that left centre-back, I feel like the centre defensive position is just sorted then for the foreseeable future. Having brought in a few players in recent years, I kind of have a set of players that are my own that I'm pretty content with. Looking at the rest of the bench, Flick and Forsby are good defensive midfield options. Adriano here, we've seen a little bit of him this year in the kind of league and when we brought him on occasionally. He's a player who I want to continue to give first team opportunities to. And of course, in terms of striking options, Tillman is currently on the bench. He will be joined very, very shortly by the new addition in Demirovic. And all of a sudden, I don't feel like this is a transfer window where we need to go and make a load of signings, rather just look for a couple of major improvements. And those major improvements could start with this man here, Torunariga, who's got a couple of bits of interest from other teams. Interesting to note, he only wants to be a squad player. For us, he would definitely be a starter. At 27 years old, I'd love to sign him down to a 5-year deal. He wasn't on a massive amount of money on his current kind of contract, so if I could get him for £25,000, that would be nice. He has just accepted that right away, which makes me think maybe I could have negotiated a little bit harder. But I feel like in terms of centre-back options, crazy physicals, crazy mentals, pretty good with the ball at his feet as well. I feel like barring him being mega injury prone or hating important matches or being super inconsistent, he'd be a pretty ideal match for our team. I am looking at the other left-back options here thinking, man, there's not many left-back options in terms of German players. Suppose the next question is there an Austrian, Liechtensteiner or Swiss left-back option? Or is my wildcard for the season potentially going to have to be a left-back? I don't necessarily love that as an idea. I'm looking at the left-back options that, well, we should probably tick the available transfer as well. So we are actually looking at realistic players. Looking at the list here, it's not getting me mega excited at first glance. Alexander Prass here is not a bad player. He's currently contracted to West Ham, but he's not enough of an upgrade really on what we've already got. Elvedi here is good, but he's a good centre-back. He's right-footed. I'd never want him at left wing back. I feel like in the last couple of seasons, it wasn't immediately obvious where to use the wildcard spot. The more I'm evaluating the situation, the more I'm thinking a left back option might be the play. Arian B is one of the left backs that we have. Roussillon is another. His contract's up at the end of the coming year. His physicals have dropped off completely. Could not rely on him to play regularly in the first team. The only other left back option we've got is Kabar, who is 19 years old. Could be one for the future. Didn't have the best first season at the club. He's in fact one of a number of these young players that we've got in the team that we have just got available for the under-19s or the B team. You might be wondering, Jack, why are you not loaning out these players? The answer is kind of simple. I need some homegrown at club players. So the players like Brunner, Watyen, Kabar, players who probably would benefit from being loaned out, I just can't loan out. I need them to stick around, become homegrown at club, and they will be hopefully players that at the very least are depth options when it comes to future European campaigns. Although when you look at how long till they get a homegrown at club, that is still a couple of years away. Just while I've got the filter set up for Austrian, Liechtensteiner and Swiss players, what kind of players might be available here for me to sign? Patrick Wimmer would be a really good signing. Not sure for £34 million it'd be the wisest spending of our money, although he is very good. He's very, very good, but he is also £34 million. And when I look at the teams interested in him, not sure we can compete with them. Carney Chukwuemeka from Chelsea. I mean, he'd be an interesting option, but again, not really a position I need centre midfielders. Players like Leopold Kerfeld here, and Kevin Danso, not bad centre-back options, but like I've just mentioned, the centre-back area is one of the areas where I'm most happy. It feels like all the players that are listed here are players in areas where I don't necessarily need players, although maybe there's options further down. Dijon Kameri here looks pretty good at centre mid. He's an Austrian player, valued at £12.5 million. I guess that's a release clause that he's got in his current deal. Indeed it is. I mean, he looks great, but he's just not what I need. I saw Huskovic here, and I got very, very excited for a moment, and then I saw not adaptable, doesn't like important matches, not consistent. That's a rather terrifying trio of things for a striker. At £12 million, he's probably the kind of player who, if I wasn't limited to one player from this collection of nations, I'd sign just as a safe bet. But I'm not willing to gamble my one kind of German-speaking wildcard on this man. Another half-decent option is Iwu, but he's very similar to Arian B, minus the fact he's kind of the right-sided equivalent. Also, another centre-back. Jack, stop looking at centre-backs. I got very excited for a moment by this guy, El Shawi, and then I realised he's actually not very good. He might have crazy potential. You could not start him at left-back for a year. I mean, whilst I don't have to sign someone from this collection of nations, it does kind of feel logical to make sure that I do use up that spend. And as I look through things now, I am starting to question if maybe one of the players I just disregarded is the right approach. Do you go for someone like Huskovic? At £12 million, it'd be a bit of a punt, but he's got a decent goal-scoring record for Austria. In the Austrian kind of top flight, he's not exactly been amazing. Do I really need another striker? I think I know the answer and you know the answer. The answer is no. I mean, I've got to remind myself as well. It's June. There's still like 2 months left till the season starts, so we don't have to try and sign someone right now. I can try and get rid of Ngankam, squirrel away some money, address some other areas, reject these kind of ridiculous bids from Saudi Arabia for Heydel, who apparently Heydel is very interested in speaking to. It's funny that. I guess Mbappe is more loyal than Heydel after all. I say that like it's a common dilemma in my head. Is Heydel more loyal than Mbappe? I mean, it's a question that I've answered now, even if it was never asked. Elsewhere, Ngankam is going to leave the club. £7.5 million, not all of it up front, a bit of a shame, but nevertheless, he's just not good enough for us, I don't think, anymore. After that injury that he had, to make a really healthy profit, almost £5 million on him, feels like a best case scenario. Heydel wants to discuss future. What's up, mate? He wants to talk to Al Hilal. The sort of money they're offering is life-changing. How much do you want to stay? He wants £50,000 to stay. That's not going to happen. I've said it's outrageous, and then he's gone, how about 2,000 less? There's no point in continuing this. He's unhappy with me because I'm not selling him to Saudi Arabia. I mean, maybe this is going to be a common thing next year in Football Manager that we all have to look forward to. This is the FM24 beta I'm playing right now, apparently. He might be unhappy. 4 years left on his current deal. It's the start of the summer. I think we can turn his frown upside down with a bit of time. I'm sat thinking, if I was to sell Hadel, how much would I sell him for? And knowing that teams from Saudi Arabia are interested, I've now decided he's worth £50 million. I'm going to confirm this and then convince him. Here's the proposed asking price. I think, mate, that you are worth £50 million. He's not going to go for this. I'll be more realistic. 40 million. He thinks it's too high. He's now set 26.5. I said 30 million earlier, didn't I? Me and Adel are having a falling out here. This is the beginning of the end. He's downcast and so am I. I mean, on the flip side, I'd rather sell Hadel than a few other players in the team. On the other side of things, can I even replace Hadel? Is there a good German goalkeeper out here that I could actually sign? Like someone like Ortega, I suppose, from Man City wouldn't be bad. Dennis Seaman here is a really, really good goalkeeper in Football Manager terms, but I'm not sure if I'd be ready to have him be our regular starter next year. I mean, Bauman's available. I mean, these goalkeepers are all fine, but I'm not going to be able to replace Hadel with someone better, which is why I've set the asking price as high as I have. Just back looking at left-back options, Joshua Wagnerman. I feel like this is a guy who only exists in Football Manager. I'm not going to pretend I watch a load of German football, but he used to be insane in Football Manager for years and years and years, and I've never heard a great deal of him. In this universe, he's just been chilling at Stuttgart, playing awfully. Not sure he's the solution to the left-back area. I'm thinking the big thing for us now is actually just to get to the 1st of June. Let's get all the transfers done that are ongoing. Let's wait for the transfer window to actually open. I don't know if it's just me and kind of confirmation bias. I feel like you get way more bids on your players and transfer dealings happen after the window opens, which is probably how it is in real life, to be fair. I imagine there's more deals done once the window's open. But, I mean, if you're a human player playing Football Manager, you like to get your deals done early, and forgive me for being a bit distracted from the initial talking point, because Pep Guardiola has returned to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich sacked Tuchel for not winning the Bundesliga. They've now brought in Pep, and, I mean, it's Pep. He's very good in Football Manager. That does mean that Vincent Kompany is managing Dortmund as Pep's managing Bayern. I'll tell you what, it's going to be one hell of a derby with those two managers. Leicester made a bid for Paris Brunner here, and I was getting very excited. I'm sat thinking, Brunner's one of our best young players. A bid from Leicester. This could be a good payday. They've offered barely anything here. They've offered 2.6 million. Apparently he would prefer to go to Leicester. I'm sure he would. He won't be going to Leicester, though. I'm turning down that deal. He's got a 4-year contract here. Why would I sell him? Okay, I have got the Torino Riga scout report here. Here is the review. Very good important matches. Little bit of injury proneness. Does that scare me enough? Or do I feel like I've got enough depth at centre-back that I could take a bit of a risk on him? I mean, if he was going to be our starting left centre-back option, on occasion where he does get injured, Arian B could just come in to fill the spot. It doesn't necessarily feel like the most deal-breaking scout report ever. Speaking of which, has anyone else made a bid for him? No. I was a little bit worried because I hadn't heard from him that someone else had made a bid. No, Rennes are the only team with a little bit of interest in him, but they're not making a move. I feel like considering the price that we're paying, 7.75 million, and the fact he's only on £25,000 a week, which doesn't make him anywhere near a top earner at the club, he's going to be a good little signing for us. And speaking of which, one continue later, I can confirm this signing. He is actually going to join as a squad player, which, I mean, he is going to be a regular starter for us, but if I do choose to drop him if he's not impressing me, at least he's not going to get too upset. I mean, when you compare Torino Riga to Martello as our starting right centre-back and the man he will be playing alongside, he feels like a massive, massive upgrade. Am I playing down how good this signing is? I feel like I'm scared to get too carried away. I think that's what my issue is. Juventus seek Zach Hyen deal. Apparently Juventus are interested in him. He has a release clause of £74 million. If someone wants to trigger that, they can have him. That's what I'll agree to sell him for. Okay, July 1st in-game. It's that magical date where you hit continue and a load of stuff all happens. Hadel is still being linked with a move away. Still don't plan on selling him. And if we have a look somewhere, well, actually it's one more continue, we can see all our ins and outs. Apparently Fofana rumoured to be going to Leipzig. Nobody liked that. Okay, one more hit of continue. Now we should get the inbox item that says, hey, here's all the new signings. You know that one where you get all the fan grades? It's like you're getting your exam results back. C+, C+, B-, C+. So the improvement on my actual exam results, I'll give them that. And Gankam is leaving the club. Fans are disappointed that £7.5 million. I don't think they can really be disappointed. Yusufu leaving £8 million. Again, apparently the board are unhappy about that one and the fans are unhappy. They'll be fine. Draxler, they're not happy about. Danny, they understand why Daniel has left the club. He had a couple of games for us. He had that one game where he was amazing. Now he gets to enjoy his retirement in Cologne. I say that, he's only 30. I will say we have had a load of bids for players here. I'm very curious to see how much we're getting offered. First and foremost, Brunner, bid from Bayer Leverkusen, pathetic bid, less than £2.5 million. He's not going for that. Mainz have made a bid for a Moako. And Moako is a player who has not really developed as much as I'd hoped he would. We signed him for £1.6 million. The bid we've got here is for £1.5 million. I kind of don't want to sell him for a loss, but at the same time, I'm not sure we're going to make a great deal off him. Question marks over his potential. If we look at him, is he even eligible to get homegrown at status? He is. Even so, I'd consider selling him for the right price. 2.5 million? Okay. Well, apparently the right price is different that I have and that Mainz have in their heads. The other bid I've got here is for Adriano, who has a value of 10.5 to 15 million pounds. Apparently Manchester United might be interested in him. I mean, are Leipzig taking the piss here? They've bid 8 million pounds for a player who could be valued at so much more than that. I mean, we're going to reject this bid. I actually feel insulted by that offer. So in terms of the new signings we've picked up, Philipp Kohn has joined us as a good backup goalkeeping option. He is part German in nationality. He was one of two goalkeepers who joined us from Salzburg. The other man, Nico Mantel here, again, from Salzburg. I stole both of Salzburg's goalkeepers. I think they're going to offer some good competition as backup options. Two goalkeepers that definitely can be relied on. Of course, the other players we picked up, Jordan Torunariga, he is going to be playing at left centre-back to start the season. And the final of the sales, or signings rather, way further down at the bottom here, is Demirovic. Good backup striking option, offers something a little bit different to Tillman, can also play in the wide areas, which I like a lot. I think between these two, we've got some pretty good alternative striking options on the bench. This is lovely and all. I do still need to sign a left-back. I'm going to try and find a left back now. Before all of that though, I have just realised, because it's now July 1st, we can actually look at players with contracts expiring in a year's time. If you don't know, in Football Manager, when a player's in the last year of their contract, the clubs drop their asking prices for players massively. It's kind of comparable to a player being transfer listed in terms of the demands that they have. So you can often get some bargains here. I'm curious to see, are there any particularly good German players available? There's some older players who, I mean, might be good additions, but I'd rather see what players for the future there might be here. I mean, there are a couple of younger players here, but they're not really of the calibre that gets me excited. Okay, wildcard left-back options. I decided just to start things off, I'd continue looking at players with contracts expired. Malacia could be available as a left-back option for us. Is he good enough to justify a wildcard signing? I feel like he is a very, very good player. As far as left-backs go, he'd be a longer-term solution. Just hasn't played regular football under Ten Hag at United. I mean, I assume Ten Hag is still at the club. I'd be wrong to assume that. Steve McLaren is interim manager. You know what? It's not the most unrealistic thing I've ever seen in Football Manager, so I'm fine with it. What's slightly more unrealistic is the fact that Ten Hag was sacked after a year, and then Zidane was sacked a year later. No wonder Malacia has not been playing much. If I get rid of the contract expiring in a year, there is actually a load of other left-back options here, but the asking prices on these players is just so astronomical. I suppose I do also have to remind myself, this is our wildcard signing that we're looking at here, so I can afford to pay that extra little bit more. I suppose the question becomes, who would you actually pick up with that money? None of these players are getting me as excited as Malacia. Is that odd? I mean, Hickey is a good versatile option, but I think Malacia might just be the play. Don't get me wrong, Ait Nuri would be a great signing, but for £45 million, he's a bit out of our budget. Malacia would also fit the profile of a slightly more attacking fullback option, I feel like. It's something that he could definitely do for us. At 26 years old, he's a player entering his prime. Is he worth the wildcard spot? That's what I've got to answer. I mean, when you compare him to Bullet, he is definitely better than Bullet, who's going to be our starting right back for the year. And there is absolutely no denying that when compared to Roussillon, who played the vast majority of our games last year, he is also an improvement. I guess my only worry with Malacia is going to be the wages of £50,000. Our current highest earner at the club is Lucas Nemesha on £67,000. I'm not sure I can justify paying that kind of money for a fullback. Someone like Sessegnon is kind of tempting. He moved to Gladbach on a free transfer, has done okay for them. How does he compare with Malacia as a fullback option? He's better going forward, but lacks defensively. I mean, he would also cost us a little bit more, you imagine. I do like the look of Adara Mola here. He is 21 years old, so he's younger than the other options we've got. He's really, really quick, good physicals, kind of meh everything else, but he would be a bit more of a project, and he's pretty good when it goes to when it comes to his attacking ability. Oh, I've got a dilemma here, haven't I? Compared to Malacia, he is so much quicker. He is just better going forward as well. And he is significantly younger. At 21, there might be room for him to grow, but 20 to 25 million pounds, that's just too much. I don't know if it's just a me thing. Fullbacks are always so difficult to find in Football Manager. I feel like fullbacks are like this endangered species. They just kind of go missing halfway through save games, it feels like. I think Malacia is the best of the bunch, so I'm going to just make an offer and see if United accept it. I suppose we can also ask the agent about availability. Agent is actually suggesting he might be available for cheaper than what we first thought. I'm going to be a bit cheeky here. £10.5 million? Okay, they want more than that. They want more than that. How about 12.5 million? They want more than that. I don't really want to spend more than £15 million on him. I'll make a bid of 14 million. I'm not sure he's the one. I'm not sure Malacia is the one, but I don't necessarily know if there's a better option out there. I suppose what might just make sense is just while I've got all these different left-back options available, select them all, scout them all, let's see what they've all got to offer. I am going to be replacing Roussillon no matter what, so I think I am just going to try and move him on for a little bit of money. Not expecting him to be happy about being forced out the club, but yeah, he's just not going to be near the first team this year. There's not a load of other players that are super obvious to cash in on. Of course, we've got a very good starting 11 with some decent value. Few options on the bench who do have high value, but no one who I'm necessarily super desperate to sell. And in fact, when it does come to that bench area, we are lacking maybe a little bit with attacking midfielder options. Obviously, we've got Adriano, we've got Demirovic, we've got Tillman. Forsby, Flick, and all the players above are all more defensively minded. It would be good to get in kind of a super sub winger player or someone who's going to, really push some of these first team players to play better in the wide areas. Scott and Zakhayan are good. Obviously, Tillman can slot in at left attacking mid. Demirovic can do a similar job in the wide areas, but a natural wide man does feel like it would make sense. And for that, I think the logical thing is to look at players who are partially German and transfer listed and hope that the player of my dreams is just listed here. Bad news, that they're not listed here. There is no wide attacking German player of my dreams, at least transfer listed. What about German players with contracts expiring in a year? Who's available? You've got players like Emre Can, Kevin Volland. Would Kevin Volland be a good signing? I don't know. I mean, his technicals are absolutely rubbish, but actually, you could definitely do a lot worse. I'm just not sure he's worth £7 million. I'm looking through this list of players. I am not inspired. Only me, still thinking about left-back options. Apparently, Schlanger here would be a left-back option of sorts. He plays for Leipzig. He's on £90,000 a week. It's mental how much more money every other team seems to have than me in this league. Paul Vanna was out on loan last year. I really like the look of Paul Vanna. 19 years old, contracted to Bayern. Apparently he wouldn't want to move to us under any circumstances. Never mind. In hindsight, perhaps a little ambitious to be thinking I can still want to buy Munich's best young players. I am looking at Patrick Wimmer here thinking, if I could sell Zakhayan and bring you in, that wouldn't actually be a bad move. I say that, I don't really plan on selling Zakhayan, but if someone's going to trigger his release clause, Wimmer would just be a very logical replacement player to pick up. Debatably an upgrade. The difference between them obviously being Zakhayan was signed on a free. Wimmer would cost us £34 million, which right now I can't afford. I'm going to do something a bit cheeky here. In fact, oh no, I'm not going to do it. I thought I was going to be cheeky. I was thinking I'll just offer out Zakhayan for his release clause, but apparently he might not react well to it, and I don't want to make him angry. Apparently our transfer story with Malacia has been leaked. Who is leaking it? Who is the mole in our team? I'm livid. There's been all this interest in Brunner, and whilst he is one of the players who would get homegrown at club, I am a bit concerned he might never fulfill his potential. There's kind of a long list of teams here interested. I'm going to try and offer him out for some money and get cheeky. I want £10 million and profit of 50% of any future sale. I almost feel like no one is going to bid that, but you don't get unless you ask, you know? So sometimes you just got to try your luck and hope that someone is going to be mental, which, based on the fact that no one's made a bid on him, I don't think anyone's going to do. Okay. Bid made from Juventus for Zach Karyan. It's like I've manifested that. One day later, they've made a bid. They've offered £33 million up front, then 29 million over 3 kind of installments, and after 50 league games, we get £7 million. It's potentially worth £71 million. It's just not worth it. I don't think. If the money was up front, I'd probably take it. But I feel like the money not being up front kind of sucks. Also, loads of teams have made bids for Malacia. Why has this happened now? Hertha Berlin and Wolfsburg, 2 of my nemesis. I hate them. I mean, when I rejected Alex Scott's bid from Aston Villa, they never came back in for him. I'm hoping that Juventus or someone else would come back in for Zach Karyan. He's going to be unhappy, right, that I've just rejected the bid. So at this point, I'm willing to offer him out for his release clause and try and convince him that it's going to be fine. Can the agent solve things? No. Not sure I've ever had the agent actually solve a problem here. Why have you started offering me around to other clubs? If you want to get rid of me, then say it to my face. It's like school drama. I might just say I need to improve the club's financial position, but I don't think he's going to like that. Okay, I'll just promise him I'm not going to sell him. Of course, what will happen now, because Football Manager is Football Manager, is someone will bid his release clause, he'll accept the contract offer, but he'll still be upset with me that I accepted a bid, even though I had no choice. Manchester United have negotiated an offer for Malacia of 18 million. I mean, can we do like 16 and a half? 16? They've gone to 19 and a half. I don't think they understand how negotiations work. 17 and a half? 18 and a half? I don't think he's worth £20 million. Has just dawned on me, if I'd accepted that Zach Karyan bid, I could have then afforded Wimmer. Is it worth trying to sign Wimmer now, or at least seeing if he's a realistic signing, so that if I was to get a similar bid where I get enough money up front for Zach Karyan that I can afford Wimmer, that I accept the deal for Zach Karyan? Does that make sense? I feel like I've explained that awfully. Is he even going to accept our contract negotiations? He wants 88 to 100,000, and Leipzig have made a bid as well. I mean, I can't compete with Leipzig. There's no way he'd accept my offer over theirs, and his wage demands are mental, and he wants a release clause. How much does he actually want? I can't go above 68. It seemed like a great plan on the face of it, but the more I think about it, the more I realise this was a terrible idea. Some good news, no one thinks that Zach Karyan's price is viable at his release clause, so hopefully we won't lose him this year. I have done the very worth the space transfer special thing here, haven't I, of talking about all these players I want to sign in this position I need to sign in a left-back. And we are no closer to signing a left-back. You know what's annoying? If I untick the unrealistic transfers option here and look at left-backs who are Austrian, Liechtenstein or Swiss, there's players like Dedic available. Dedic would be a quality player for us at left-back. I know he hates important matches, but everything else about him is great. I mean, he is right-footed, but we can make it work. I mean, Alaba would be a fun left-back signing, but he's on £350,000 a week, which I do think might be a stumbling block. I just noticed here, Renan Lodi is available for 16 million. Renan Lodi, I mean, he's a player who's got around a little bit, and I'm not sure he'd necessarily be a great player for us. He was relegated with Brighton last year. Wait a sec. Brighton were relegated this year. Does this mean that they've got good players? Have they got anyone with good release clauses? I mean, like someone like João Pedro for 29 million. If I was a Premier League club, that wouldn't be a problem, would it? Matoma is available for £23 million. Matoma is very good now in Football Manager after the winter update. I say that, then you look at his performances and feel underwhelmed. What does his agent think it'll take to get a deal done? £23 million and £90,000 a week. I can't afford that. So apparently Wilfried Gnonto is the key player in the whole of the championship. He's contracted to Brighton. How much did they sign him from Leeds for? £31 million. He doesn't have a relegation release clause, does he? I mean, he's gonna have some fun. I'll tell you what, he's going to have a good time in the championship. I've looked through all those championship players. I can't afford any of the good players in the championship with our current wage spend, which really puts into perspective how overpaid Premier League players are. I've been asked if I want to follow up on my interest in Wilfried Gnonto. If Zach Kyan left the club, I might look to bring this bloke in, but I can't afford him as things stand. On top of that, as I've already talked about a number of times already today, I really should be using the wildcard signing on a left back because they don't seem to exist. I am half tempted to put in a bid for Ryan Sessegnon. He'd be a really good attacking left back option who would overlap with Zach Kyan on that side of the pitch. He isn't the best defensively by any means, but I feel like we could do a lot worse. Didn't have the craziest of years with Gladbach in the Bundesliga, but I feel like he'd fit our team pretty well. I'm not sure if there's an argument to suggest he's better than Malacia. Malacia's aggression and bravery are really good. Sessegnon isn't the kind of defender who's going to put in a tackle, which could be to his detriment. I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make a bid for Malacia and hope that it gets accepted. I'm going to have to overpay here like £19 million. And at the same time, I'm going to put a bid in for Sessegnon. I'm kind of interested just to see the difference in wage demands between the two players. Does seem like on the face of it, at least, Sessegnon is a more affordable fullback option. I mean, £15 million isn't exactly cheap, but it's a position we absolutely have to address. Another slightly older left-back who has just popped up is Omar Richards. I think he used to play for Bayern Munich in real life. Yeah, he did. He had a couple of years at them after he left Reading on a free. Joined Nottingham Forest for £7.75 million. I feel like he's not quite of the same calibre. I already know that today's episode is not going to end with me signing a fullback, so I might as well just scout a load more younger fullback options sorted by price and see if any of them are any good. Sessegnon bid accepted. He wants £59,000 to £75,000. Malacia, £65,000 to £86,000, and also has more appealing options elsewhere, including Wolfsburg. I feel like this is down to me not getting Champions League football, and that hurts to think about. Okay, given what I know about Malacia's demands and the team's interested, I don't think he's an option at his current price. As for Ryan Sessegnon, at £15 million, he's not a cheap option by any means, but he is a very, very good attacking fullback option. I'd like to think we can get a lot out of him, and I'd also like to think that within our system, he'd actually fit in really nicely as an overlapping option with Zach Kyan, kind of maybe make up for Zach Kyan's lack of, well, I was going to say lack of athleticism. Zach Kyan is athletic, just not quite to the same degree. I feel like these two players could be kind of complementary to one another. At the same time, I'm really not sure that Sessegnon is the ultimate solution. He also wants to be a winger on the left. I want to play him at fullback, but we won't tell him that yet. He wants a release clause of £18 million. I can't give him that. I don't want to include a sell on either. Don't really want to go above £50,000 a week. I feel like he's not going to be happy at what I've just negotiated with him. Yeah, okay. We're going to have to play a bit of hardball here. So this is the contract I've eventually negotiated down. I'm not sure that he's the right signing at this price as a wildcard signing at left back. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion. I feel like there's got to be someone better out there, or maybe a better option will come out there later. I'm kind of looking at Arian B thinking, if I had to play you at starting left back for a year, would that be the worst option? Given the fact that left backs just don't exist. And if I did have this as a starting 11 for the year, like, would I be unhappy? I don't think I would be. I suppose the question is, where would you make the wildcard signing? Where else would you improve? I guess you'd be looking to get in a talented midfielder of sorts. I don't even know at this point. I feel like I've ended the episode now with more questions than answers. It's one of those things where if I don't get Sessegnon, I'm not sure what the plan B is. Maybe I just need to go away and think on it. I feel like that's the beauty of these two-part transfer specials, especially with this one going up on a Friday. I can have a bit of a think, and I can actually read the comments and do the summer, or the second half of the summer, over the weekend, having had a bit more food for thought. I look at that starting 11 and I feel like it's pretty good. I feel like that's a team that should be challenging for top 4. It's a young squad. I mean, when you look at the actual age of the team, there's loads and loads of room to grow. I feel like in Tarun Origa, we've added a really good centre-back option who I think is just underrated by our staff. He's going to be a bit of a weapon from set pieces as well, which is nice. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if Zach Kyan or Alex Scott have their release clauses triggered next time out, that maybe shakes things up massively. And I feel like maybe just looking for youngsters for the future with our two wildcard signings might be the way to go. I feel like if you're a long-term watcher of the channel, you become accustomed to the transfer special two-parters kind of being the part one, which is the initial thinking phase, doing some deals, working out what's actually possible. Generally, part two is where we get stuff done. I'm going to hope that's the case today and next episode. Let me know what you think of the signing of Sessegnon. Would you do it? Should I be going in for Malacia instead? Also, Ozturk. I feel like this guy might be an absolutely insane player. I have now noticed that the scout report has updated since I signed him and his potential doesn't seem nearly as good. But for £500,000, even if he doesn't get any better, I feel like he's a good deep line playmaker, not a winger. No idea why someone's trained him to play on the wing. That should be a war crime. I already know that I've talked a lot in today's episode, so editing Jack has got to work hard to get this down to a concise, coherent episode. With that in mind, if you want to fuel his editing powers, likes on the video do help. Comments regarding the episode do help. It helps push the video into the algorithm, and I do massively appreciate the support. On Monday, we return. On Monday, I promise you, I'm going to make signings. I'm going to spend some money. We've got £27 million to spend, so yeah, expect something to happen next time out. Of course, that video will be dropping at the normal time and place of midday, Monday. Every weekday is Union Berlin Day. I hope to see you guys then. Until then, I'm going to head the other way. I don't know why I'm rhyming everything. It's kind of lame. It's not that great. I'm going to leave you now. I'll see you, mate. Why have I turned into Shakespeare? This is cringe, isn't it? This is cringe. Bye.